was a profound policing vacuum in the North for many decades. This was not created by Republicans. During the conflict, large sections of the community in the North did not access or trust the criminal justice system. And in some cases, citizens were victims of state abuse, or the police turned a blind eye to abuse. We cannot be selective in dealing with the failures to handle allegations of sexual abuse. There is no hierarchy of victims. All should have been assured the protection and support of the state that they lived in, and indeed this state. Women prisoners were subjected, as a matter of policy, to the sexual assault of strip searching. The women subjected to this abuse deserve access to justice and to hold those responsible, those who conducted the assaults and those who sanctioned the policy, to account. Throughout the conflict in the North, the police and court service were subservient to the objective of combating republicanism. This cannot be discounted as Republican propaganda. The state pursued as policy the primacy of gathering intelligence on Republicans over that of tackling criminality. It has been the experience of many victims that went forward to the RUC that they were more interested in intelligence gathering than dealing with their complaints. We also are aware of the number of abusers who were safeguarded from arrest or had charges dropped if they became an asset to the Special Branch or British Army intelligence. We also are aware of the number of abusers who were safeguarded from arrest and indeed, while they made complaints, were recruited and taken advantage of. That was the practice that was in place until the implementation of the Patent Commission. This was the force within a force that operated throughout the conflict. Successive Irish governments were aware of this, and that was why a new beginning to policing formed a key part of the Good Friday Agreement. We cannot be prescriptive or selective as to who is entitled to due process and support. To ignore that reality is to ignore the abuse that went unreported or investigated by the state, with the potential that abusers were safeguarded from arrest. All victims of abuse at a time of conflict deserve support and access to justice. This must include those who could not access supports of the state, those whose allegations were failed by the RUC, and those who were let down or who were failed by the actions of Republicans. And indeed, many people living in the north of Ireland who endured all of those years watched with great interest when Fine Gael and Labour and Fianna Fáil politicians have an interest from time to time in the affairs there, usually when there's some political advantage to be obtained. Any proposals to support and provide justice for abuse victims must address the legacy of state forces or being seen to be, not seen to be selective and party politically motivated. Now, I understand that there are around 300 serious cases on the desks of an Taoiseach and the Minister for Justice. Most, if not all, of these cases have been referred to the independent panel of counsel for their review and recommendations. Some of these cases are persons or families alleging the cover-up of murder and a profound failure of the criminal justice system in this state. Despite requests from some of these families for meetings with the Taoiseach, no meetings have been facilitated. The Taoiseach has not commented on these cases. The Taoiseach has not labelled the accused as guilty without due process. The Taoiseach has not set aside any time in this chamber for statements on these matters. That's around 300 cases with some of the most serious allegations you could imagine, and no demands for debates from around the chamber from those who have took advantage of this today. The Taoiseach protests that he cannot comment on those cases as an independent review process is underway. I'll say that again. The Taoiseach protests that he cannot comment on these cases as an independent review process is underway. Many of these families have contacted me and many others in recent weeks with the observation that the Taoiseach and others in this government left aside all of this previous practice to avail of the opportunity to score political points. They are hurt about this and they are outraged. And Taoiseach stands accused of cynicism and his government colleagues and political opportunism. I believe him and they to be guilty on both charges. I now wish to outline just a few of these cases. Shane Toohey was from Tullamore, County Offaly. He was 23 years old. On the 2nd of February 2002, Shane attended a nightclub. He would never return home. His body was taken from the River Brosna in Clara on the 9th of February by his brother Edwin after a week-long search. Shane's family believe that their son was the victim of a brutal assault that night that led to his death, and that his body was subsequently dumped into the river. They have attained the services of 2 forensic pathologists based in the United States. Both of them put Shane's brain injury down to head trauma. One of the forensic pathologists, Dr. Kim Collins, states, "It is my opinion that the manner of death of Shane Toohey is indeed homicide." Yet a Garda source was quoted after Shane's body was recovered as stating that foul play was not suspected. Worse still, a member of An Garda Síochána went on the local airwaves to state that Shane Toohey had gone missing on a number of previous occasions. His family have rejected this statement as entirely untrue. The Toohey family believe that their son and brother was murdered and that some members of An Garda Síochána were involved in a cover-up. They are devastated by their experience and they have a harrowing story to tell. Jim Goonan was found dead in his home in Birr, County Offaly in March 2002. Jim's brother Cyril believes that he was murdered despite the advice given by An Garda Síochána to the DPP that his death was not suspicious. Cyril and his family have a serious story to tell. On August 2nd, 2011, 23-year-old Shane O'Farrell was killed by a hit-and-run driver at Carrickmacross, County Monaghan. A law graduate, Shane had handed in his dissertation for his master's degree at Trinity College earlier that day. Like Shane Toohey, he had a full life ahead of him. Words cannot describe the devastation Shane's death has caused to his parents and siblings. His mother told me when I met her that their family are destroyed. The driver of the car that killed Shane was a drug addict with 40 previous convictions and was at large because of 2 suspended sentences imposed on both sides of the border. Shane's family believe that their son and brother was killed by this state because of the incredible litany of failings in our criminal justice system that culminated in the killing of Shane. Theirs is also a harrowing story. Tomorrow, a delegation of families seeking justice for their deceased relatives will visit Stormont Castle to meet senior politicians from each of the political parties in the north, including the DUP, Sinn Féin, the Ulster Unionist Party, the SDLP and the Alliance Party. The families who live in this state, including some of the families I've just discussed, have lost loved ones in violent circumstances, in 2 cases their own children. They've also been unable to get a meeting with Taoiseach Enda Kenny. There's no comment from the Taoiseach or senior government colleagues because an independent process is underway. That's their defence. Yet we have 5 hours of debate here today with some statements read into the record, even though there's an independent process underway in the north. I wonder why. They'll also be accompanied at the meeting tomorrow by Garda whistleblower John Wilson and journalist Gemma O'Doherty. This is the first phase in a new international awareness-raising campaign about cases of alleged Garda wrongdoing, which will be taken to the European Parliament and the United Nations, among other institutions, next year. Will the Taoiseach finally meet these campaigners and these families, or is there not political opportunity in this for him? So I'll wrap up with this. As Sinn Féin spokesperson on justice, on many occasions I have raised issues having met families from this side of the floor. And again and again and again, I've been met with obfuscation, denial, resistance and refusal to engage with those families. I give just some of the examples today. I could have read so many, many more. I haven't the time. Those families in recent weeks were outside the Dáil protesting, looking for a hearing from An Taoiseach, looking for a hearing from the Minister for Justice for this state, looking for their families' experiences, the profound failure in this state of our criminal justice system to be discussed, and they cannot be heard. Yet, and people are not fooled about this debate today, out there people know that what happened today was a cynical a cynical episode of political opportunism, political point scoring, mostly by people who could not give two damns about the people of 6 counties, who spent their entire political career denying the rights of people in the north, turning their back on them and kicking down anybody who would defend their rights. Nobody is fooled by this episode today, and shame on you who will not meet the families in this state. There are around 300 families, but did what you did today. But nobody is fooled, so enjoy your journey. Well